Well-weathered leather, hot metal and oil, the scented country air, sunlight on chrome, the blur of the landscape, every nerve aware. I have always liked racing games. Way back in the day I can remember playing stuff like this on home consoles. A lot of these games were just unforgiving, brutal nightmares, and yeah, it sucked a lot of the times, but it's what we had. As the tech improved, the games actually got a lot better. Uniracers is still one of my favorite racing games of all time, and I played the hell out of rock and roll racing with my friends back in college. I really don't want to get into a history lesson because we will be here for weeks, but I was thinking about this recently, and I wondered, why aren't there many racing MMOs? Most of the high-profile racing games are out there are single-player console games, and you would think that the genre would lend itself to massive multiplayer gaming. Now, before you say anything, yes, I am a... Aliens hands. Before you say anything, yes, I am aware that there are racing in some MMOs, and I'm aware that there are racing-specific MMOs, but I don't know, the whole thing seems to be just rife with problems. I mean, for starters, most of the racing MMOs out there are pay-to-win. The easiest to point at is Need for Speed World, which is an EA title. The game is free, but everything in it costs money if you actually want to play with some kind of ability to keep up. They seem to know this, and they've actually sold $100 cars in the past in the cash shop. Seriously, virtual car, $100. Real money. Another culprit was the Ridge Racer Driftopia, and I say was because as of this recording it's being taken off the beta test and probably removed from Steam too. Every time you crash, you have to repair your car with gear points. You get 50 a day, and if you want more, cash shop. Naturally. At least that's what it appears to be. I mean, they've dismantled it in preparation for something. They haven't told us what. As much as I realize these models are nothing new in gaming, the racing scene seems especially filled with these schemes designed to gouge the players' wallets in exchange for more virtual horsepower. Literally, games like this are pay to win. You buy a more powerful car, your odds of winning increase exponentially. And there are enough people out there willing to put $30 into a game just to win it. Screenshot taken today. Not an exaggeration. But just for a moment, let's take the entire pay-to-win model and just shove that off the table, just for the sake of argument. Let's talk about the racing itself in these games. The racing often is uninspired, frustrating, just plain bad, all the above. Prime example, Race Room. This is a game that originally billed itself as a simulator, which I've come to learn is shorthand for you have to micromanage every nut and bolt in the car and the game is unplayable without a $1,500 USB steering wheel. No, seriously, those exist too. I find games like this are pretty much an exercise in self-indulgence from the programmers as they brag about how many things you can tweak on the car, most of which you'll never need to tweak on the car. Most racers go for the arcade route, which you could just get a car with ambiguous stats that are never really explained and you just drive. I like the idea that we can just shut up and race, but the trade-off is that these games are usually the PvP route with combat driving. You can't beat them, shoot them, I guess. In games like this, driving skill isn't rewarded as much as just using your weapons effectively. I mean, it's fun, but more in the arcade style of fun. You play for a couple minutes, you get bored, you get up and move on to the next game. I should mention there's a lot of MMORPGs out there that include some sort of a racing thing in them, you know, side quests, stuff like that. All of them, however, single player. DCUO and Defiance both have these type of in-game races. DCUO is strictly a by-the-clock race, and Defiance has that too with a global scoreboard. The hacking has been amazing for a while, but they at least reset those scores recently. In both cases, these races are not really worth doing until you reach end content. In DC's case, you have to have some of the movement boost you can't open at least until level 10. Defiance, well, driving is a skill you level up. The higher your level of driving, the faster you go in the vehicle. So, yeah, apparently being a good driver adds horsepower in Defiance. What's also interesting are their rewards. In DC, it's emblems and skill points. Emblems are the logos you see on people's chests, so if you happen to be making not Spider-Man, you need to be an acrobat, go to Metropolis, go here on the map, platinum the race that you find here, and you'll get the spider emblem. You also get skill points that also helps you out with getting more weapon power in the game. Defiance is similar in that the feats for gold medal times in all the races also have the same kind of thing. These feats translate to a boost to your ego score, making your bullets more powerful, so it's worth doing them at end content to get some fairly easy ego points. That is, of course, assuming that you can play dodgeball with the universe. You see, these MMOs, these races take place in open world, not unclosed courses. So you have to dodge everything as you're trying to race for time. Everything. Ignoring the hijack bug for right now, Defiance races have to deal with the world at large. I have had arc falls drop in on my race line. I've had to stop racing to shoot bad guys just to clear the track. I've had to dodge major incursions, and a lot of other things. When the dev team set up the times to beat, I don't believe they did so in open world. If they had, they would have added a couple seconds to allow for well-armed track hazards. What I'm getting at is you're going to be doing these races over and over and over because of all of this. You'll even start looking at split times, doing time math, and knowing you can't beat the time and you'll just restart. At least in Defiance, these pace times are brutal, and as much as I like the sound of a well-tuned engine, it gets old, so playing your own music helps. I find Iron Maiden works pretty well. Or Rush. Sometimes some classical. But hey, whatever works for you. But again, it's all single player. DCUO does have a couple four-person racers out there, but nobody takes advantage of them at all. It kind of makes me wonder why there's no MMO for big racing, you know, like Le Mans, the MMO, or I'll even take NASCAR as a large MMO, even though I don't think NASCAR is really racing. It's just go fast, turn left, go fast, turn left, go...
I think I can help here.
What do you know about racing?
You could say I have some experience. Racing is a thing in Second Life. I've raced karts, supercross, hoverboards, windsurfers, stock cars, giant snails.
Snails.
It sounds weird, but it's actually pretty cool. Anyway, there's tons of racing going on out here, and the #1 destroyer of races? Lag.
Is it that bad?
Let me put it this way. Most racing sims have a script counter, and if your avatar is too heavy, they ask you to fix it or leave. That and everyone has to have their own paint jobs, sticker packs, racing clothes, and so on, so while SL is cramming dozens of textures down your pipe, you're trying to also race, assuming your draw distance lets you do it. Most of the time you hit walls and stuff because you just can't see what's in front of you until, boom, fence.
So nothing like Le Mans with 50 racers on a track, huh?
Well, there is that giant snail race in the mainland they use to raise money for the American Cancer Society. They get like 50 people or so at a time. I told you it was cool. But that's probably why you don't see big MMO races. You remember how bad Dalaran was when 50 people were hanging out there? Now imagine them trying to race from Booty Bay to Scarlet Monastery and how much it would cause server stress every time they rolled through a town. Not to mention people griefing them, rammers, people who think wrecking is racing, and they just ruin it for everybody else.
You might have a good point there, but Eastern Kingdom rally racing would be really cool.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, okay, so for 50 people on a regular sim for an MMO, yeah, that might be just a little bit laggy, but the thing is that something like this could be done. I know it, because it kind of already has been done.
Hell, I might subscribe to WoW if they did that.
Hush, creature. This is a game called Trackmania, and specifically this is the Stadium expansion. The multiplayer aspect is amazing in that you can have dozens of cars running the track at the same time without a problem. No lag spikes when people enter or leave, and they solve a lot of the problems of griefing by just letting cars pass through each other. Oh, you still see the opponents on the track, but they can't wreck you. Any new car ends up being a default model, as the game downloads the car texture when it can. So even with dozens of cars, you don't really have lag, and you can still have your custom ride, at least on your screen. As much as I would love to go drafting or go door to door with another driver, I realize through practical experience that people will abuse this. They'd rather pit you than pass you cleanly, but for the ability to have dozens of opponents, I'll concede a couple things. As much fun as time trials are though, nothing motivates you more than seeing the headlights behind you and knowing one mistake, you're getting passed. But in the end, it's still a solo affair because it's you versus the clock, and that's time trials, not really racing. You need actual opponents to race against to be racing. But I suppose it's such a niche market to ask for that saying, you know, you should make an MMO like this. Well, you know, maybe an MMO already exists like this. If you know about one, leave a comment down below. I'll try to check it out. It'd be kind of awesome to do that. But you know what? With all this PvP stuff kind of popping back up and racing kind of being a thing, I wonder if we can talk virtual world entertainment into releasing Red Planet as an MMO. That would actually be kind of awesome.
And this is my racing snail. I put the tires on it, I added the S decals, and I call it the S-Car. And you should see my S-Car go.
Creature, you are incorrigible.
Then stop encouraging me.